stopped at a gas station. I wanted to write something down. I didn't have anything in my car to write with. So I went to this gas station looking for probably two things most people don't look for: a pen and a notebook. And I looked around and I couldn't find any, and I went to the clerk and I said, "Do you have pens and notebook?" He said, "Oh, sure." He took me to the section I didn't go to. He pointed me to the pens and the notebooks, and I said, "Thanks a lot." He said, "You're welcome, Mike." And I had that look on my face, a kind of bewildered, terrified look, and then he just tapped. And I looked down, and sure enough, "Hello, my name is Mike." And it said, probably, he could read, in invisible ink, and I like to be addressed as such because it makes me uncomfortable. So I, immediately tore off my name tag and crumpled it up, put it somewhere that he could never find it in case it was anything. But these name tags are everywhere, and I always, whenever I see one, I remember a T-shirt I saw at Hastings that said, "Hello, my name is," and then underneath, silkscreen there, it says, "Inigo Montoya, you killed my father. Prepare to die." From the Princess Bride. I was looking online and I noticed that the Atlanta Braves have actually printed up dark gray T-shirts and silkscreen right here in red. It says, "Hello, my name is," and then there's a blank because there are so many new players for the Braves that have been traded, that are free agents from minors and the majors, that they have an almost completely new roster. And so they've encouraged the players to wear the shirts and write their names down. Now, the baseball players, being typically kind of raucous, they have taken this opportunity to not write their correct names down, but to write all sorts of nicknames that they give each other. So I don't know how helpful the "Hello, my name is" T-shirt is when you put it in the blank. Dirty Dave, that's one. Another says, "Hello, my name is Grilled Cheese," but I suppose it's helpful, I guess, when you name each other in that way. I also saw online that the Breakfast Club is turning 30. That John Hughes film, The Breakfast Club, that came out in 1985. I did the math. 30 years old, I can't believe it. And if you've never seen that movie before, don't start now. But it's the story of 5 teenagers that are trapped in Saturday detention. They've all done something wrong, and you find out what it is over the course of the movie. But these 5 different teenagers are trapped in the library under just enough supervision so that it's funny, but enough not supervision so that there's actually a movie to watch. But all of the different types of students are there. There's the brain and the athlete, and there's the criminal and the basket case, and then the princess. All these different types together. And they don't have name tags that say, "Hello, my name is." But they've already labeled each other. They already know, or they think they know, who's there and what they're like. And the interesting thing about the movie is that as they get to know each other, they realize that they're not too different from one another. And the labels sort of come off, and the social constructions, the boundaries are sort of brought low. And there's a really pointed question at the end of the film, and I think it's Brian the Brain who asks. He says, "What are we going to do on Monday?" What are we going to do on Monday? Well, as I read in the Gospel of Mark, I see that Jesus has a Monday ministry, a ministry of tearing off labels and crumpling them up, a ministry of crossing boundaries and going places you shouldn't go. He has a ministry of touching people everyone says not to touch, and healing them. Now in the Gospel of Mark, Jesus, his reputation has spread. And so the lepers that would live alone or in small groups, even they have heard about Jesus' ministry. And so this leper comes to Jesus and says, "If you choose, you can make me clean." And Jesus, moved with pity or moved with compassion, says, "I do choose." And he stretches out his hand and he heals physically heals him and restores him. Now, Paul read eloquently a passage from Leviticus, a passage I would guess is not in the lectionary, because we don't have a lot of use for the section on skin diseases anymore. I can't imagine that A.T. Still University is teaching Leviticus 13 and 14 to their students about how to approach skin care. But the people of God are trying to figure out what to do, trying to figure out how to be holy as God's people and what to do with these various skin diseases. And more often than not, they just kind of sent people away. And every now and then they came back and they checked on them and they sent them away again. And so people were socially isolated and cut off from relationship. So it's not just that Jesus comes to physically heal this man, but then he says, now what I want you to do is go and show yourself to the priest and offer whatever it says in the book of Moses as a testimony to them. Jesus doesn't just want to heal this man physically. He wants to heal this man spiritually and relationally. He's come to restore the whole person to life. And what we see when we watch Jesus, see what he does and listen to what he says, what we see is that Jesus' ministry is a mundane ministry, a ministry of defying labels and crossing boundaries that people have set up and touching those people that everyone says, don't touch them. Don't do that. But Jesus touches the untouchables and restores them to life. I was at a conference about 7 years ago, probably the same conference where I looked for a paper at a gas station. And I was sitting there, and there was an expert standing in front of the room, Bob. And Bob was talking about vision and mission and church growth and all sorts of good stuff, and people were really eating it up with a knife and a spoon. Bob told a story about pastoring a church in California. And he talked about this guy, Kyle. And he said Kyle was a huge guy, and he had a huge heart, and he had a gift for hospitality. He loved to greet, and he wanted to greet every Sunday. Bob said this was a real headache for me as a pastor, and it was becoming a nightmare to the session of the church, because Kyle wore women's dresses. Now at that point, I was thinking like you're thinking right now, why is he talking about this? And I stopped listening and I looked around to see if anyone else was doing what I was doing, which was looking around and trying to get a reaction, if anybody was making reactions. But everybody must have been great at gambling and playing poker, because nobody acted like this was weird at all. And so I was like, okay. So I have to go and pay attention. So Bob continues telling the story about the session meeting and talking about what to do about Kyle. And they talked about the values of their church, and they talked about Christ's call, and they decided that they were going to ask Kyle to stop coming to church, because they had decided that if they continued to let him greet, if they continued to let him be a part of the congregation, it would take them in a different direction, he said. Now at that point, I looked around again. I wasn't shocked that he was talking about some gigantic man in a dress. I was shocked that he would say this in front of a group of people out loud. Because this would, in my mind, was like Jesus, the leper coming to Jesus and saying, if you choose, you can make me clean. And Jesus saying, I'm thinking of going in a different direction. I mean, Jesus' ministry of tearing up labels and crossing boundaries and touching people no one wants to touch is not easy. It's very, very hard. It's very challenging. But it's what Jesus calls us to do. And being a disciple is often doing what you don't want to do. And being the church is often doing it with people you don't want to do it with. But we don't have a choice. It's what we're called to do. It's the ministry Christ calls us to. Monday morning ministry is not easy. And often, we're not prepared for it. That church wasn't prepared for it. It was much easier for them just to say, right, this is settled. Kyle can't come. Done. But that's not what Christ calls us to do. So, how do we accept this challenge that Jesus laid liaisons, tearing up the labels, crossing the invisible boundaries that we've built up, and touching the untouchables. How do we do that? How do we engage in ministry like that? Well, Presbyterians are usually in their heads first, before they make the long journey from head to heart. So I have thought of 3 theological principles I'm very proud of. I imagine they could be knitted on a pillow or something, but these are 3 things that might prepare us to engage in this kind of Monday ministry with Jesus. The first is, everyone is different. Everyone is different. I think that is bedrock truth. Everyone is different. I wish that Kirksville would change the signs to welcome to Kirksville where people are different. Because that's the truth. Everybody is different. Everybody that looks the same, they're different. Everybody that looks different, they're different too. Everybody's different. And even in the doctrine of the Trinity, right? God is different because the Father is not the Son. And the Son is not the Spirit, and the Spirit is not the Father. Even within God, there is this difference. Difference is celebrated. So everyone is different. That's the first. The second is that everyone is a mystery. Everyone is a mystery. Now, not in the sense of it was Professor Plum in the study of chemistry. Not that kind of mystery. But a mystery in the sense of you could spend your whole lifetime with someone and you'll never know everything there is to know about. They'll constantly be surprised. My example for the theological principle, everyone is a mystery, is a story I tell about Elizabeth and I when we were first married. She's already shaking her head, so she knows what I'm going to say. So I'm not listening. No, we were first married, and somebody asked her, "What's your favorite movie?" And I was young and naive, even more young and naive than I am now, if you can believe that. So I thought, I know what she's going to say. Somebody asked her favorite movie, she's going to say either You Got Mail, or, I was hedging my bets, or Sleepless in Seattle. One of those great Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan, film fest, right? She says, probably The Matrix, or one of the Die Hard movies, where there's far more gun shells on the ground than there's any kisses, right? I was shocked. I looked at her, my mouth fell open. Well, who are you? Everyone is like that. Every person you meet, it's like there is an infinity within them that opens up. You'll never know everything about them. Everyone is a mystery. So everyone is different, and everyone is a mystery. The third bedrock theological principle is that everyone is created in the image of God. Every single person you meet is created in the image of God and is a child of God. So if you didn't grab one of those "Hello, my name is" stickers on the way in, there's far more than enough for you to grab one on the way out. And look at that. And you can imagine writing that, or you can write it in action. You can write "Child of God." Hello, my name is Child of God. And as you look at that, think of people you don't get along with. Think of people that you're in conflict with. Think of people who support the New York Yankees. Think of people who vote on the other side of the aisle than you. Think of people you struggle with. Think of your family. Think of people you love and people that you like. Because all of them are created in the image of God. All of them are mysterious. All of them are different. This is the kind of thing that will prepare us for engaging in this ministry Jesus calls us to. The only label he would accept, and he wouldn't tear up, is one that says, "Hello, my name is Child of God," and that's your name too.